Hi there, everyone. My name is Sean McGregor, and today I'm going to be discussing how the running community is an example of a discourse community. A little bit about myself. I've been running competitively for about 10 years, and currently I'm a member of the cross country and track team at the University of Dayton. So I have a little bit of knowledge of the running community and the sport. So yeah, let's get into it. So what is a discourse community? According to American linguist John Swales, discourse community has 6 characteristics. Discourse community has a broadly agreed set of common public goals, has mechanisms of intercommunication among its members. It uses its participatory mechanisms primarily to provide information and feedback to its members. It utilizes and possesses one or more genres in the communicative process, and it has acquired some specific lexis or language. And finally, it has a threshold level of members with a suitable degree of relevant content and discoursal expertise. So people in the community who have very knowledgeable about the subject or the community. So going off of those 6 characteristics, we can kind of narrow it down, the definition to a group of people trying to accomplish a goal, a group of people that accomplishes this goal through intercommunication among its members, and then finally a discourse community is a group that communicates through the specific lexis or specific words, unique sayings that the group has. So how is running a discourse community? Running is a very social sport. You're often talking during runs with your friends, your teammates, your club members. So running communities kind of thrive off of communication. So like we said in Swale's first characteristic, a discourse community has a broadly agreed set of common public goals. So some of the goals that go into running teams and running clubs are personal bests in time, mileage, and place. Those are 3 of the most common. This can also apply to team bests in time, mileage, and place. So those are some of the main goals of running. These goals are communicated through running logs, social media, coaches, and other runners. Running logs are kind of a journal entries for runners to talk about data and how they felt during runs, etc. So some specific language in the running community are PR and PB, which stands for personal record and personal best. There's kick, which basically means sprinting at the end of a run, and then cut down, which means to pick up the pace at the end of a run. So one of the sources that I looked at for this presentation was by the Technical Communication Body of Knowledge. In their article, they talked about how discourse communities basically wouldn't exist without interactions between individuals, the writing that they produce, and the beliefs that they have about other members of the community. And they also discussed how does an online community differ from a traditional one. So an online community has different levels of expertise that are simultaneously present in the community of practice. It's fluid to the center of movement that symbolizes the progression from being a novice to an expert, and it has a completely authentic tests and communication. So the other article that I looked at was by Lumen Learning. And in this article, they discussed how car manufacturers and airplane manufacturers, while to the common man they may look like kind of the same type of job, they're actually subgroups of one larger group, which is manufacturers, and each one of these subgroups has a specific language to their job. So airplane manufacturers, car manufacturers might have different words that would make it hard for them to communicate with each other through their jobs. And then finally, Professor Ann Buford describes a discourse community as a social group that communicates, at least in part via written text, and shares common goals, values, and writing standards, a specialized vocabulary, and specialized genres. So how does running tie into these two sources? So in the first article it says that a discourse community would not exist without interactions between individuals, the writing that they produce, and the beliefs that they have about other members of the running community. The running community, without the coaches, without other runners, social media, or running logs, would make it very hard for it to be a team activity. So it would be more of an individual hobby, not as much as a community or a club or a team. In the second article, like the car and airplane manufacturers, there are other different subgroups of running. There's in addition to long distance running, there's sprinting, trail running, there's ultra marathons. So there's a bunch of different subgroups that go into running. So and all of these groups have different sets of language. So in this example, I said how long distance runners may use tempo, cut down, or cadence in their vocabulary, but these don't really apply to sprinters. They just don't apply to the type of workouts that they do or the type of practices that they would have. So those are examples of words that aren't used in all subgroups. Furthermore, the article or the quote from Ann Buford that I described said a social group that communicates at least in part via written text and shares common goals, values, and writing standards, specialized vocabulary, and specialized genres. So, like we said earlier, running relies on written text like running logs and social media. So these are kind of some of the written texts that are used. On the right, this is an example of actually a personal running log that I have. So I track my miles here, and you can see how many miles I do in a week and some of the different data entries that I have in there. So that's an example of one of the written texts in the running community. And these are my sources that I used for my presentation, and that's it. Thank you for listening.